Time to talk politics with the leader of the Green Party. It is Mr. Russel Norman. Morning, Russell.
Morning, Wammo. How's it going?
Good, thank you very much.
What's it feel like to turn 55?
Excuse me. I don't know, thankfully. Just at this stage, I'd still like to experience all the years between now and then. Not wishing my life away. Yes, no, let's talk politics. The announcement, of course, last week by the Labour Party of their capital gains plans. Of course, the Greens have been trumpeting a capital gains tax for a long time now. Is there anything that you would have changed about the Labour's announcement and what Phil Goff said?
Yeah, we probably would have had fewer exemptions and applied it in a slightly different manner.
What would you have not exempted?
Well, I think the exemption for businesses that, of older business, small business owners, I think is a very peculiar exemption, actually. But I think, our policy was to exempt the family home, and I think that's fair enough, but we wouldn't have exempted anything much beyond that. Right,
okay. Anything else that you would have included?
No, I mean, I think it's important to have it as broad-based as possible, and so I think exempting the family home is enough and everything else should be in. The detail of Labour's proposal would actually be worked out by an expert group post-election, and we'd obviously submit into that process to try to influence it.
Are you with them on removing GST from fruit and veggies?
We supported the bill to go to select committee, and we were going to look at it there, but we hadn't made up our mind about whether it was worth it. I mean, the thing is that it has some upsides around having a small reduction or possibly a small reduction in the price of fruit and veg. There's just a number of downsides around it, like how do you actually make the supermarkets pass it on? It's not so easy. And then there's a question of targeting. Is it the most effective way to spend that money? Because most of it, the benefit doesn't actually go to the people who are poor.
Phil, talking to Phil on Monday, he reckoned that he'd spoken to, say, progressives who have experience of this over in Australia, and they see it as sort of no problem. But you're saying that perhaps those savings aren't passed on.
Yeah, so the issue is supermarkets cross-subsidise all over the place, and have lost leaders and all the rest of it. So the prices bounce around an enormous amount from day to day, in fruit and veg in particular, actually. So actually making sure that they pass on the fact that it doesn't have 15% GST is not so easy to do. The other issue, of course, is if you're a small business owner, it just makes the whole thing much more complicated. It's easy enough for the big supermarkets because they just have one giant computer program that runs all their shops and everything's barcoded and it's just everything's the same. But if you're a small business owner, there's higher compliance costs once things start getting exempted. Because, if you're going to exempt food, there's a lot of other necessities of life one could consider exempting as well.
Okay, let's move on from there onto oil drilling. There seems to be some delay now in handing out permits for oil exploration in the northern area, northern seas of New Zealand. What do you think's behind that?
I honestly don't know. It's clearly one could make an argument for a political rationale, that is, National don't want this hanging over them at the election time, but we don't actually know, even though we might have our cynical view of why National's done it. We're not quite sure.
Maybe it's because the price of petrol has gone down a little bit.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the price of oil bounces around. I mean, it's we're obviously at a new level than where we were before 2008, and that seems to be staying there. But I think a few dollars up and down isn't going to make a huge difference to their plans. Yeah,
to their long-term plans. And what do you know about, because I just heard some preliminary research into the effect of oil exploration on whales, and the type of equipment they use can affect whale sonar. Have you heard much about that?
Yeah, there's been a bit of work done on that. I mean, it's still nobody's entirely sure, but there's some evidence that actually it does cause damage to whales and other cetaceans, dolphins and all the rest of it, because of they're very sensitive to sounds in the water, that's how they get around. And so these high energy pressure waves that are used to try to determine what's under the ocean floor can cause a lot of damage to cetaceans' organs for actually sensing pressure, because obviously they can be disrupted.
Makes sense, because it's a type of sonar that the oil explorers are using, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a high energy wave.
Yeah.
And, that's going to have an impact on the whales and the dolphins and all the rest. It's just, there just hasn't been that much. There's been some research done into it, but there should be more. And in the meantime, we should be quite precautionary about it, because, whales are actually in trouble.
And I wonder who's going to fund that research.
Well, that's where you need a bit of public good research money. It's important to have research that's, around commercialising inventions and all the rest of it. But you also need public good research for these kind of things.
All right, Russell, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, pleasure. See you later, mate.
See you, co-leader of the Green